Welcome to Baby Steps. I'm your host, Allie Weiss. Each episode will dive into one small yet impactful step that can help lead to a more fulfilling life. Today's guest is Ash Schroeder. She coined, at least for me, the word brand therapist as I was starting my brand Grip Baby. We work together at Pinterest. She's a marketing genius and she's also a really good friend of mine. Hi, Ash.
Hi, girl. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I feel like it's a weird day. It's day two of, we don't really get political, but I'm about to get political because this, if anyone wants to know, I'm a raging liberal. It's day two of us in this new world, and so I feel like today, it was meant to focus on you and just only you and your business and us, but we might veer off a little bit.
Well, and I think I'm so glad you led with that because the whole principle behind like brand therapy is like your business is what you do, but your brand is who you are. And it's like, especially as women, we've been like forced to separate our
Mhm.
values, who we are as a person, all these things, our lives, the balance from like what we do. And what I've learned with the women I've worked with is the more we actually embrace the integration of those things and being proud and vocal, then you find your community, you find the right people. So it's like, we
Yeah.
shouldn't have to be so silenced all the
No,
time.
and it's like it's literally the patriarchy of why we feel we have to be so silent, and it's definitely embedded and ingrained into us, especially as millennials. Maybe Gen Z is breaking out of that. I hope for them they are, but I saw some meme yesterday that was like women going back to the office pretending like nothing happened, and it was just a woman at her computer, and I was like, thank God we don't have to do that anymore because we're currently working for ourselves and we can sit in our office and scream or text each other or chat if we need to because it's difficult.
It is. It's really hard. I mean, I think that it's interesting because the way I described it, like my husband Ryan obviously is feeling things deeply and is upset. We have a 3-year-old daughter. Like there's lots of factors, but I think the way I described it to him, and anyone who's not a woman or a minority group can have empathy, but ultimately it's like I feel like the last 10 years of therapy, trying to stop gaslighting myself, trying to
Right.
listen to the voice in my head, like, and be kind to her and all these things, and now my country's basically telling me like it's undoing all of that work. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It completely makes sense. And I feel like, we have brand therapy, we have personal therapy. And for me, over the last 10 years, it's been a huge shift in the compassion I have for myself and the compassion that I have for other people. I feel like I'm less mad or angry at the world because I'm more happy with who I am, which has allowed me to be a more empathetic and powerful voter. I can give you an example. This is veering off a little bit, but we'll get into you and a little bit more in a second. There was something on the ballot around giving, and this is for Oakland specifically, giving renters to continue their rights versus people who own. And I'm a homeowner. Like, yeah, sure, I'd like to be able to like raise rent, but there's a housing problem. So, like, we vote for the people, right? And like, I think there's a struggle I have of people voting for their wallets. And I think when we're in a time where human rights um, are so challenged, it's like put them up, put the couple $1,000s aside and vote for the people, please. At least for the future women. Like, you have a little daughter. It must be so heartbreaking to see this happening in the world.
Well, and it doesn't feel real, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like the year 2024. We feel like at this point we would have been going forward, not backwards. And I think to your point though, it's I think as women and as mothers, we our muscle for empathy and compassion and is just so strong. And I think that's why we have spent the last 48 hours crying is
Yeah.
because we don't understand how other people don't have that same perspective. And it's scary because it means our children are growing up in a world that doesn't feel very empathetic, kind, or even like informed.
Right. Yep, absolutely. I think we can see the bigger picture outside of what some people might think is voting for the president. Like, whatever, this person's going to help me help my investments or whatever it may be. And I think we're seeing the bigger picture as mothers. What's the world our children are going to live in, and how is this presidency going to affect the next election? Are we going to move into a more progressive state, or is this just the next move into continuing to take away people's rights? And I think that's what we're all a little bit nervous about.
What's been an interesting course over the last day and a half is, some other moms that I'm close with, and I don't have a lot of local mom friends, but I have a couple, and there's actually this like movement towards opportunity and positivity, and maybe it's just like things actually have to go this direction first before they can get so much better. And I am more motivated than ever because my whole brand therapy, the whole thing is helping women understand their values, understand their purpose, so they can then go activate on that, whether that's in
Yeah,
their business, in their lives, like, and I'm like, oh my God. So the universe is literally calling me to activate these women.
absolutely.
The women. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to see this as an opportunity. It's deeply upsetting and I can grieve. Two things can be true. We know that having children, we can
Mhm.
grieve while also feeling this fire. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to birth more purpose driven businesses too, which really aligns with what you do over at your consultancy. Um, so yeah, I mean, we could talk on this all day, and maybe we will need to. Um, but let's get a little bit into you. Before we get into one move that has sort of changed the trajectory of your life or your career, I'd love to learn about your business because there's a lot of strategists, creatives, there's agencies. What you're doing to me is so much more organic and holistic, and it really speaks to my brand personally. Love to learn a little bit more about brand therapy and how people can work with you.
oh yeah, thank you, Allie. Well, first off, I think I always wanted to probably be a therapist, but
Yeah.
I'm a highly sensitive person, as diagnosed by my therapist, and so I think that boundaries, et cetera, would be hard for me to be in that actual career and
Mhm.
profession. And so, I had probably 12 years of being a marketer,
Yep.
both at agencies, in house, and in tech, and then being a marketing leader. And I realized that brand is this notion is just like vastly misunderstood. And it's
Mhm.
either overcomplicated and made to feel like so strategic and framework and stuffy,
Yep.
or people think it's like just a logo.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I realized, like, and this was in my last role, I was like a VP of marketing, and I had my brand strategy done by an agency, and I received it, and it was thoughtful, and it was long, and it sat on my desktop because I just was like, how do I use this? I know it's right, I know I need to use it. And so when I left, and I will happily share more about like the personal and professional reasons why,
Absolutely.
I said, I'm going to help purpose driven businesses actually understand what brand means and how to activate that in their business so that
Yep.
they're clear, successful, focused, and all the things. And I started using Simon Sinek's Golden
Mhm.
Circle framework.
Mhm.
So, like the why, the how, the what. And
Yep.
he has this like iconic TED talk where he talks about Apple and Apple's why, how, and what. And it's like what can fluctuate always. Your why stays, as the foundation, and your how is sort of like the values and how you operate to deliver on that why. And then your what is like the products or services you actually do and make and deliver. And so looking at it through such a simple lens and mirroring that back to people, okay, well, here's your why. And we do like deep discovery, like true brand therapy, like what motivates you to get you up every day. Like, and it's custom based on the client and based on sort of like, is it a personal brand? Is it a female founded business founded by someone who already has a personal brand? There's so many elements there,
Yep.
but it sort of came from the need to simplify brand and make it actionable across your business.
Mm.
Because it's so like I always say I want to rebrand brand.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. I remember when you and I were at Pinterest together, the founder, Ben, said something about making the basics great before kind of like moving forward and executing. And I think for people who are either just starting a brand, maybe they've been in marketing, maybe they haven't. There's a lot of great people who've never been in marketing or who have started a product or a brand who are doing this as well. Bringing them back to the basics to really understand what brand means only helps their brand be more thoughtful. And the audience, I feel like, can understand that brand so much better if you really start from the ground up and dig in deep. And also differentiate yourself, because there's a lot of people selling a lot of things, and what makes it different is who is selling it.
Yes.
If you're getting to know the founder or their values or their beliefs, or if they're purpose driven, that's really going to have a customer sort of latch on and stick with that brand.
Especially the right customer, right? I think
Right.
that's a huge part of what I also do with the clients and the women I partner with is like, who's your audience? Because if you're for
Mhm.
everyone, you're for no one. So like, let's get really clear on like who the impact you want to have and on who. And to your exact point, and I love this example is like you walk into like a Whole Foods or an Erewhon and you see like the hundreds of water brands.
Right.
Right? And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, well, what differentiates them from one another, and why do you gravitate towards one over the other? And like we almost as consumers, because we're also consumers first, right? Like being conscious of those decisions is actually so interesting. Like,
Hmm.
and as women making the purchases for our household between toilet paper and paper towels and snacks, and why do we pick Bounty or why do we pick Charmin or like it's so interesting and it's always fascinating to me even the more and more I do this is like why did I just choose that when I know the generic Costco one is the same but I still pick this one,
Right.
you
When
know,
you're
it's like those
shopping,
basic principles.
yeah, no, that's so interesting. When you're shopping for your family, do you feel like you're shopping as a consumer, a mother, or a marketer? Or do you like, is your brain switching? I feel like sometimes when I'm shopping, I'm thinking about like the quality of the ingredients, but I mean, I'm a sucker for a good logo and design. Like if you're showing me something beautiful, I'm pretty easily tricked.
Oh, totally. Like I'd almost be more willing to buy for how something makes me feel or the
Yeah,
messaging because I respect it
right.
than I am to even like look at the ingredients or the
Totally.
price.
I know this makes me feel like a good mom because it's a clean, simple logo that's showing just the fruit and not the additives that are probably listed on the back.
But even though you know that they're just marketing to you, you know, but
Mhm.
it's like, but if it's female founded or you feel like you know the story or it was a referral from a friend, you're like, okay, you know, there's so much that goes into your experience with brands and
Yeah.
how, you know, and I think it's like it's such like for example, I don't know if this has been openly talked about in any of your content, but like thinking about the baby space and especially Grip Baby. Kite Baby
Mhm.
has for the last since I've been a mom, 3.5, 4 years, been sort of the go-to for a higher end
Yep.
bamboo, you know, baby has eczema, double
Mhm.
zipper, all the functions we know are important, but
Yep.
still $40 a pop. Like that's a lot for a
Yep.
onesie. But when the information came out that maybe they
Yeah.
weren't the most values driven business, and how they supported their employees and the women, ironically, that worked for them,
Mhm.
I was like, I can't buy from this anymore. I just
Yep.
can't.
Yep. No, I was down the same path, and it's definitely a brand visually and quality that I want Grip Baby to strive to be like. But when it came to how mothers buy the products and they weren't supporting mothers, it was something I had to step back from, which makes me realize that consumers are more aware than ever of marketing, branding, and who the founders are, which is why it's so important for a brand to do something like brand therapy and really identify the markers of their brand ethos, so that if something like this does come up, they're truly living by their brand. And it's almost like a check sheet they could have. Are we doing all the things we said we're going to do? Because if not, it's going to get out there that you aren't acting right.
You're not walking the walk in the way
Yeah.
that you say you are. And it's so funny you say that. It literally becomes sort of like a gut. I say it's like a gut check.
Yeah.
Like say a brand like Kite were to do brand therapy, and based on the product and their messaging, it would we would assume that part of that checklist would be, supporting mothers. And
Yeah.
if they look at that and then they mirror, I mean, brand should inform everything: your internal
Right.
policies, how you hire, how you talk about things, how you prioritize products. Like if you're considering making a new product, but it doesn't really align with your brand strategy, you shouldn't be making the product, right? Like it's sort of your North Star, your purpose, your why. It's like we can overcomplicate it as much as we want, but like at the end of the day, it is, and I can share mine because I think mine is really interesting because it actually has nothing to do with marketing
Yeah, I'd love
or
to
brand.
see.
But through I had brand therapy done for me because it's not really something you can do for yourself because
Right.
it's like
Mhm.
it's
Perspective.
deep, especially with the female founders that I work with. Like we have like a 3 hour discovery session where literally I can even tell I have it here. They map out, like we map out like a giant whiteboard of like their life, and then I
Yeah.
hear themes and I
So
extract
great.
themes. And it's so fascinating because even in regular therapy you don't quite do that level of
No.
work,
I would
right? You're
love
not
to do
like,
that level of work in actual therapy.
right, totally. And like through this work, I learned that my core values are joy, connection, accountability, integrity. And I'm like, I guess I knew that, but I didn't know it as
Yeah.
tangibly.
Yeah.
And so then, like, my why is to connect with myself and others and connect people to one another so that everyone feels worthy, loved, and seen.
You're like the Phil Stutz of branding, of brand. It's great. I love it. I think this is a call actually to Kite Baby to hire you and do brand therapy because they did crisis control, but I haven't seen anything change with the brand, and I think it's probably time.
Well, it's
Probably
funny
time.
because accountability is so important to me, right? And
Right.
I am so lucky to be in the position where I get to choose who I work with, and I will only work with clients who share my values in that
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
really
what's really interesting about brand therapy is you have to be open and willing to connect with yourself as a
hmm
founder in order, and connect with me and be open with me in order for it to even work. And
right.
so I've had certain clients that I haven't moved forward with. Everyone's intentions can be positive, but if your heart's not ready to like crack, then because as women, what we do and who we are is so intertwined. And if you don't
Yep.
want to embrace that, that's fine. But the main pillar of my business is that.
That's so cool. I feel like as women, we were always told to separate our personal selves from our business. If we cry at work, if we have any emotions or feelings, it's just seen as weak or negative. And what you're doing is you're really changing that narrative and allowing women to be true parts of their business. And I think that can carry on from just what you're doing, hopefully, to other brands. And I hope to be one of those brands that brings my true, authentic self to the table. And it's just wonderful that, it used to be a big room of advertising guys smoking cigarettes, drinking, coming up with brand ideas. And now we have a highly successful, wonderful mother who can work from home and help some wonderful brands be successful. And I think you have the opportunity to work with up and coming brands, but also there's a lot of big brands that would truly gain a lot from working with a single person who is helping them kind of crack open everything and redo it. And I think there's a lot of value in working with somebody who really cares about your brand that way.
Well, and I think it's really interesting because I've learned a lot about myself in the last year and a half since I left my last role in tech. And I've often been told that I'm too much or I'm too
Mm,
intense or like that I'm a lot.
yeah.
And similar to your story of like the compassion you've developed for yourself and getting to know yourself, I think becoming a mom has been a huge factor in that. But I'm starting to realize like, wait, no, these are actually gifts I have that when applied and channeled with the right people who value them, I can bring so much to other people. And then those who do think that I'm like too much, like it's because they just don't share my values.
Yeah, that's okay. They can continue to think you're too much and you'll bring your talents elsewhere.
But
Cool.
it's oh, go ahead.
No, you go. It's fine.
I was just going to say, I think another part, I mean, so much of this is like intuition and learning to trust ourselves. And that's why I do only work with women. And I
Yeah.
think that like society and this week has been a just heartbreaking, devastating example of this, has taught us to not trust ourselves, to not
Yeah.
listen to ourselves. And I think that's personally why I'm struggling so much. But like the work I do is reconnecting women with their intuition,
Mm,
especially as business owners and founders. Like you're trying to do everything and you know what's right, but like we're just sort of like surviving.
yeah.
And like we need to reconnect with ourselves in order to like pause and be like, okay, these are the three things that matter. These are the three things that don't. Like, and so a lot of my work is like retraining women to reconnect with their intuition and trust themselves because it's just so integral. And I think that like I'm so happy I have the space that I have from my last role in tech. But really what ended up happening, and maybe this is more of like the little steps or whatever, but and you and I could probably talk about Pinterest endlessly,
Yeah.
but we've been in situations where we've either been gaslit to feel like what we observe is not accurate, or we've been the
Mhm.
only woman in the room, or, and I think that I, I always acted with integrity, and any flag I would raise in my career when I worked for someone else would be based on what I thought was best for the business and other people. I was never, and that's how I always knew, okay, Ash, you're raising this because you want to hold people accountable, because you want what's best for the business and you want what's best for everyone. And people don't like being held accountable, I
No,
learned,
they don't.
especially in those spaces where it's very performative
Yeah.
or people are hiding behind titles or whatever. And being a woman and being a mother, I was the only leader,
Hmm.
who was in that situation. And it's just different than being a man or even being a dad. And I struggled so much. And so things were really great. And then something turned, and I don't know what it was, but instead of like trying to figure out what it was and fix it, I had found out I was pregnant again and my mom had cancer. And I decided that I didn't want to fawn and people please this mercurial CEO
Yep.
anymore.
Yep.
And so instead of even saying anything, I left under the guise of personal reasons. And it was so heartbreaking because my team was incredible, and I loved the purpose I was delivering on, but I couldn't play the political game. And I knew I had so much faith in myself, and I knew I needed a healthy pregnancy. I needed to be there for my mom. I needed to be there for my family. And we were building a house at the time, and it was not the financial risk that needed to be taken. But I can tell you now, this far out, that was March of last year, I am so much happier. I'm so much more connected with who I am. And I've made an impact on all the people I've worked with more than I did in my previous career of 12, 14 years. And
Hmm.
so I was so afraid to talk about it. But here's this very, very real thing that I feel so viscerally in my body. And I even think about these people as I say this to you, is I had to remove them from Instagram. I was so afraid to actually speak to my very real experience because I thought I was going to be gaslit and be told, Ash, that's actually not what happened. Nope, this is what But I'm like, no, this is what happened.
Yep.
I was there.
Yep.
And they never even acknowledged my departure.
Oh,
And it was what it was. And you know what? Now it feels like this small to me, if I'm being honest.
yeah.
Um,
And you deserve. like a man leaving to do what he needs to do for his family would have been cocktail hour. Let's celebrate. But of course, because you're doing something that goes a little bit against the grain and you're holding your own boundaries and doing something for yourself, it's like, whoop, she's doing, let's hush, hush, let her out and let's not chat about it.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. Well, it's
and
so
it was
interesting.
the choice, to leave because I was already feeling that I was being scapegoated
Yeah.
anyway, and instead of fighting that, it was like, I'm going to do what's best for me and not my ego. My
Yep.
ego was like, I want to be a CMO.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I
Yep.
realized, oh, being a CMO won't make me happy. That's so funny.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is diving into like the one pivotal move that changed everything for you and helped you start your business and be more present with your children.
I think to your ethos, it was a few little moves, but I think it
Yeah.
was having and this is what I want all women to realize, is like having the faith and trust in themselves to just take the risk. And I
Yeah.
know that everyone's situation is different, but your family deserves a happy, present person. And sometimes it's also navigating, when is it worth fighting and standing up for yourself, and then when is it actually that outcome is never going to get you what's best for you emotionally or mentally, and the path choosing the path of least resistance and having that be okay.
Right. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
don't always have to like fight so hard.
Right. Not everything has to be difficult for it to be a win. And I think it's probably, I mean, I had this situation, it's not to say that neither of us will ever go back to a tech job. We can do whatever we want to do. But right now, in this moment, I think, being new mothers and having to divorce our idea of who we thought we wanted to be from who we now want to be is so difficult. I mean, you and I would say we're both type A powerhouses a little bit. And in the sense of, I think we both were like, yeah, we're going to be on the CMO track. And that's not to say that that's something we could do in the future. But right now, I think we are in a position where we realize how fragile life is because both of us have lost our mothers and we want to be present with our children, but we still want to make money and we still want to be creative and we still want to be business women. So it's cool that we can do both. And yeah, it's cool.
And I think it's like, to your point about, we also have been taught by society to tie our value to external things, like
Hmm.
titles, like how we're perceived. Are we a good enough mom, employee, wife? And to not look inward for that
Yeah,
validation and that
yeah.
value. And I think, being who we are and how hardworking we are, I'm so glad I realized at, was I 33 or 34, like
Hmm.
that, wait, I'm giving this all to a company that a man owns, and I'll never be seen, and I'm tying my value to like an arbitrary promotion or raise or whatever. And I'm like, I want to work for myself. Like, that's
Hmm. Better
crazy.
yourself. Yep. It is crazy. I mean, did you think that you were going to, like, for me, it was so important to be part of something that is a brand people know. It's Pinterest, it's Google. You're a part of this thing. Like, to step outside of that really took some major ego death, at least for me.
Yeah. No, same. I mean, especially with Pinterest, I tied my value and identity. I mean, we were both there close to five. I was there 5 years,
Yeah.
like
I was only there
formative
2 years
years.
and I feel like I was there for 10. Like I was at Google 3 times the amount that I was at Pinterest. And to me, Pinterest feels like I was there forever. And I think it was because it was startup world heading into, like, it was a pre IPO, but heading into that. So we were wearing many hats, doing so much. We were given a lot of power for, I would say, like our level of roles, in the sense that there was people approving stuff, but it was kind of like you're
It's like
trusted
the
to go
wild,
for it.
wild west. It was
Pretty
so
cool.
fun.
Pretty fun, pretty cool. I would still say one of my most fun roles I've ever had, but definitely there was a lot of, um, it breeded a lot of competition that didn't really feel true to who I was as a person. And it made me feel like I felt cool and smart, but I also felt like I was sacrificing a lot of my values when it comes to how I work with like people around me, and that didn't feel good. But when it ended for me, it felt like a true breakup. Like I was really sad. I went home and cried in bed because I thought I'm no longer going to be stepping through these doors, seeing these people, working on these projects, and probably the biggest thing is I can't tell people that I work there anymore. And that sounds lame, but it was truly heartbreaking for me.
Well, and I think too, coming back to the idea of brand, I will give it to Pinterest. They have a beautiful brand and a
Yeah.
clear mission, and there's a lot of brand love. And I think there's a lot of things from a product and feature standpoint that I would have done like if I had the say, they missed some shots, I'll say, but I think that they've maintained brand love. And I think especially as employees, we felt attached to the brand as a consumer, which made us work so hard. And I
Mhm.
think to your point though, like how beautiful is it, Allie, that like we can look back, I mean, that was like almost 8 years ago, and be like, oh, that breeded competition, even arguably between you and I,
Yeah, absolutely.
when that actually is not our values, and we probably would have been like the best of friends if that wasn't the situation.
I know.
Like,
I know.
isn't that
I know.
crazy?
It is. It's crazy, but I think it also shows how much work we've done on ourselves to be able to, or we're like kids, right? I mean, we're in our late 20s, early 30s. Like we're kids, like doing all this work, and it's like
Kids.
crazy and fun. Da, da, da. Then we kind of come out of it. We each go our separate ways. We're working on cool stuff. Motherhood starts to come into play. We both, I know we're watching each other. We're like seeing what everyone's doing. We have our children. Then we both quit tech. And let me tell you, I'm building a house too, and I quit. And so when you said that, I'm like, oh my God, I am living her life right now. That's crazy. Started our businesses. Our businesses are very complementary towards each other. And we can come together and be like, wow, that was a crazy time. I think we tried to be the best we could to each other, but we were definitely put in positions where we were
And you know what's
we're
so funny as I think about like the people who are
you
actually
won,
in
by the way.
control. What?
I said you won, by the way.
Oh, oh, a different version. I don't know if I did. I was unhappy and gaslit, and my work was taken from me, and all, like, but I think it's like we tied our value to getting certain roles or titles or
Mhm.
full time. We literally
Yeah,
tied our value as humans,
I know.
when the people making that decision were men,
Yeah.
and not particularly smart or good, or they didn't use Pinterest. Like, it's actually
Yeah.
funny if we think about it. Again,
It is
not saying anyone's a bad person, everyone's intention was good, but like for anyone listening to this who like questions like their role in corporate, or they have a male boss who like seems to like know so much, no one fucking knows what they're doing.
no,
Everyone is
they don't.
making it up, trying to keep their job, survive, and manage their ego. That's all
Yep.
it is.
Yeah, some are
All
better at presenting to their face to the corporate whoop. Some are better at presenting their corporate face to the world than others. At that point, I was probably more of a shaker upper than Pinterest wanted, which which is fine. But it definitely taught me a lot about how to properly work in corporate, because it is a game. Working in corporate is a game. You have to know who the people are. You have to move your pieces accordingly, or else you're not going to win. And that's a fact.
And it's almost like if you accept that, then you're like less resentful about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You
I
know,
think I
and it
when I went back the second time, And I was like,
Mm.
okay, I can do this. And then it just was still so far from who I was as a person. And I couldn't, like, I was lying to myself.
Well, isn't it interesting? Like, this is like the thing about brand therapy that's so important, and and why regular therapy we should learn our values and like
Mm,
understand that is like as a brand or a business, you think your values are like something on a poster, like in the bathroom.
yeah, totally.
But
Integrity,
like as
quality.
female founders who do this work so intentionally, your values are that how. They're that middle circle that help you deliver on your purpose. And your values are also the thing. Like if you ever feel like an ick with someone or like there's a misalignment or like something just doesn't feel right, it's literally because one of your values is not aligned
Right. Right.
all the
Yeah.
time. Like, and so to know your values, okay, connection's my core value. Oh, I'm struggling right now because this person's not even connected with themselves and not
Hmm.
self aware. So I can't even have a conversation. Or one of my favorite values of myself is like people that take themselves so seriously that are like, so, like, I'm like, oh, you take yourself too seriously. I can't do this with you.
Okay. Do you think that's one of your core values because you took yourself a little seriously at one point? Or is that something that you just have noticed in people that you don't want? I'm truly asking from a place of wonder because I feel like I took myself a little seriously in our Pinterest times. And I look back now and I would have maybe laughed at that girl a little bit, like lovingly laughed at that girl a little bit.
Totally. I think it's both. I mean, I think for sure because I was just so external focused for so
Right.
long.
Yeah.
Like I was like an actor, like a good actor.
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel very disconnected from her and I'm
Yeah.
sure that that's why now it's one because I think as I've sort of woken up to tech
Mhm.
and to just like human nature in general is like
Yeah.
it's all ego driven. Everyone's making it up. No one knows what they're doing. So why are we so serious?
Yeah. Why are we so why so serious? Because we're not saving lives. We know that much.
And even like like marketing should be fun, brand should be fun, getting to create should be fun. Like
Yeah.
I see my children and I see how joyful they are and I'm just like, yeah. Like
That's so cool.
why are we so like everyone like acts like as if they're so self like
Yeah.
righteous and it's just so goofy. It's like, oh my god, you're just like a goofy person. Like
It is.
what?
It shows that we were all children at once and kind of tying it back to motherhood and your career. Do you think having children has brought back some of that childlike wonder within creativity that I feel like was sort of sucked away from me from working in corporate for so long, but now seeing the world through their eyes, it's helping me be more imaginative, and I'm just wondering if you're kind of feeling that same vibe after having the little ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it's everyone is seeking some sort of varied perspective, whether it's like going on a retreat or doing like a heavy dose of mushrooms, or like,
Yeah.
it feels like everyone's sort of looking for a tool by which they can then look inward again. And I
Mhm.
think my children have been that for me in a lot of ways.
That makes
Like, not to
sense.
be like, oh, Marley, she's like a mushroom dose, but like, kind of.
She's a little mushroom dust.
Her first birthday party theme was Marley's Magic Mushroom Medley.
I
Um,
was obsessed with that, by the way. Such a good theme. And I have a son named Forrest. He's got a lot of mushrooms in his room.
I mean, they're
Mushroom
trending.
overload.
It's like, but I think that it changed me too because I wanted them to see that I love what I do and that it makes me a better mom. And so when she sees me working, whether it's at night or if I have to respond to something, like I'm usually pretty like present, but like she'll be like, Mom, you working a little? Like it's like positive and she wants
Yes.
to like be a part of it. And I'm like, how beautiful is it that she's gonna have that perspective on
Mm.
me and my job? And I go, yeah, I'm helping other mommies. I'm helping other
That is
mommies.
that is actually so beautiful, and you're making me think about, part of part of why I want to work is because I want my sons to see that women can be parents and also hold a job. And like, I know that's not for everyone. Like, please, people don't get mad at me, but that there is that independence. And, my mom sacrificed a lot to stay home with us. And I say sacrificed a lot because while it was the joy of her life, as she got older in life, there was not much that she had for herself. And I saw how it was really detrimental to her health. And, hearing about Marley saying, Mommy, you doing some work is just, it makes me happy. And my son will come in and sit down and say, I'm doing work. I'm doing work. And I go, well, what are you doing? He goes, I'm working on YouTube. Because it's like the only digital thing he knows. But it's just cool. Like, I never even thought of it that way because when my dad was, always gone and working, it was a sad thing. It was, oh, he has to go. Oh, sad.
Mm,
Oh, he's gone again, or he's not
right.
here. And the fact that we can be present and work is, it's, I mean, it's a luxury, first off, like totally aware that many people go into work, but I just feel happy that it's an option for us these days.
Totally. And it could evolve, right? We don't know what our families will need of us. And I think that that was another motivator, if I'm being totally honest. And I don't think it's as talked about as it needs to be, but like the demands of working in corporate tech, again, that's
Mm,
from my experience, is
yep,
the responsiveness required via Slack. Like
yep,
Slack gives me like PTSD. Like, no,
totally.
like
Yeah,
the responsiveness required, especially at the level that I was functioning at, and what was required from an output standpoint and availability standpoint is just physically not possible when you have
it's
young
not.
children.
It's not. It's not at all. As I get ready for my morning, which still is 6 a.m., like, I think about how would I fit the making of the lunches, the commute, the personal 20 minutes of bonding time that I know is so transformative and powerful for our relationship that I didn't have for, when I was going back. It was like almost a year that I was back. And I think about how would these things get done. And I have a husband who's incredibly involved and does all those things too. Still not enough. I have a nanny who is involved and helps with those things. It's still not enough. So when they say that it takes a village, sometimes we have to hire them. That's okay. Those people still become parts of our family. It really takes a village because for one person to take all of it on, even without working outside of being a mother, is too much. It just is. It's too much for one person. It's possible, but it is too much. I mean, emotionally and physically, it's very, there's
But
a
at the
lot of wear and
cost of
tear on that
what?
body.
Yeah, and at the cost of, your identity and your well-being, and so I think it's like I'm so grateful that both of us have this option, and it's a privilege to be able to have our own businesses and have that flexibility. But I
Yeah.
think it's like I don't, I think about corporate America and how there needs to be more inclusion and equity and women and people from minority groups. But the reality is that those people are also the primary caregivers.
Yeah.
And and the expectation, I mean, the bias, I wouldn't even say it's unconscious, the very conscious bias. I mean, isn't there a term towards, there's like a term about like women, like the motherhood consequence, or there's something.
It's called the motherhood. It's not the motherhood tax. It's called the motherhood something. And it's what happens to women when they go back to work and how it affects their career and their paycheck. And I will say, uh, it incredibly affected mine when I went back to work to Google. And I don't think Google as a whole is very supportive of motherhood and the things that they give are wonderful. They're not quite on par with like Europe yet, but they really do well. It's the people in place who are in charge of your career once you are back that I found really, really problematic and troublesome. In the sense of I saw my bonuses go down. I was putting in just as much work. I didn't talk about my kids. I didn't do things that were to give people more work as a new parent, which happens a lot to people who don't have children. They often take on a lot of other work. I tried my best not to do that. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but I saw myself being penalized. I saw work being taken away from me. I saw ownership being taken away. I saw, because I couldn't travel as much to shoots, it was and that's the part of it. It's the choice I make, right? Like I wanted to be a parent and I'm putting that above my career, but there are things that are not in place to support mothers as they come back to work and to keep them on a career trajectory that is up. And that is why I had to become my own founder and my own CEO, because I wanted to be utilizing myself in a way that was actually good and useful and true to what I was good at.
And supportive of your lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Like we can still be the type A, like psycho women we are and deliver for a greater good and a greater impact. But like it's even like it's so much more concentrated when we get to do it for ourselves and the people that we choose to work with. And I think that I don't know what it will look like in the future, but my anecdotal experience is just that, you know, my dad counterparts got away with a lot more and were, you know, it was just the nature of like groupthink and men and all of these things. And, you know, I was okay, well, Ash's mom. And it's just like how that actually makes me better. If anything, I'm more strategic. I can think critically, I can solve problems creatively. Like, good, take me on. I dare you. So
Yeah.
that's why I think it's funny. It's like, oh, you're underestimating women, like collectively as a nation. That's so, thank you, because we're going to serve it up even harder.
Yeah, much harder. And I think maybe it's not underestimating us. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they don't want us there because they don't want to even open Pandora's box to see what is possible and what we're capable of. I know that as a mom, I work more efficiently, I'm more strategic. My time is so valuable, but I'm able to use it in a more incredible and thoughtful way.
Intentional. We're
Because
so much more
intentional. Yes,
intentional.
absolutely.
It's it's so true. And I agree. I think that people don't like being held accountable
Yeah.
collectively and individually. And I think if you are a purpose driven brand business founder and you know who you want to serve and you know what you stand for, don't be afraid to stand for those things because the right people will buy from you, work with you, partner with you. And those who don't share those values, they are doing you a favor by seeing themselves out. And I want to be positive and I want to be optimistic and I truly do feel that way, but as I think about my own gifts and opportunity to serve women, I'm excited to work with women who share my values because now more than ever, we have to rise up and create this world, you know, because we can. We can. And it's just, we're still resting and we're grieving, but we're also like fucking lit.
Yeah, it's time to go, right? It's like we get a couple days. Moms don't ever have a day off. So for us, it's like, okay, I'm going to cry today and I'm going to get to work tomorrow. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing in the world, and I'm so excited to see what's to come. And I know that eventually I'll be due for a brand therapy session as a founder. And Ash,
We could do like a live one.
that would be so cool. I think the audience would love that. And before we go, I would love to know where people can find you, where they can connect with you, and if they're a brand or a founder, how they start working with you.
Yes. On Instagram, I'm just Ash Schroeder. And then my website is ashschroeder.com.
Beautiful.
And I have, you know, packages and all sorts of things, but everything I do with women is like custom to their need and where they're at, both in their life and their career. So just like DM me or email me, ash@ashschroeder.com. Feels so like murky saying
I know, but it's
that.
important, we do these things and you're like, well, I don't know where to find her.
I know. And I just can't wait to do more for you, Allie, and also for Grit Baby because I think that you have identified it's the best case scenario when, as a mom, you identify an opportunity and a need, and then you work incredibly hard to actually fill that need
Yeah,
and build something that can help, and so I think your product is such a delivery on your why, but I can't wait to hopefully partner with you to figure out what more you will do with Grit Baby to
yeah,
deliver on that purpose.
absolutely. And I'd be so excited to do that too. I think it's needed, especially approaching 2025, where this year is sort of a test. Let's see, and then what are we actually doing in the new year? So it'd be so amazing to do together. And then also just on a personal level, I'm so excited to have reconnected with you. You're truly a confidant for me and somebody that I know I can go to, whether it be about personal life or parenting or bigger things like, not really bigger, I shouldn't say that, business things like what we're doing in our careers. So it's been so exciting and to kind of rehash our experience at Pinterest, which I know we both loved so much and had challenges. Two can be true, right? We couldn't love it and we can have had major challenges with the experience, but it's cool to come back together and eventually we'll live about an hour away from each other. That will be so cool. So I just hope to continue this friendship and continue working together on a professional level.
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much for
Love you.
having me. You're
Yeah,
the
of course.
best.
Bye.